Scoot up.
This is your press conference.
Yeah, this is
And the light is on.
You all are up here. Scoot up, scoot up. All the way up, all the way up. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on.
Thank you.
Of course.
All right, Rashida,
Okay, I'm so sorry.
you all ready?
I'm just saying hello, right?
Yeah.
Am I talking or no?
You need something to do with talking.
You do it. What? I didn't know I was going first.
No, it's okay.
All right. The mics are all hot, so.
Yeah, it's fine. It's okay.
Okay.
All right, we're gonna go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everyone. We are here. I am standing with my amazing sister in service, none other than the fighter, but the mother to so many of us, Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib. We are here and we're asking for everyone to respect the space. These students have been through a lot, and I just want to premise with that. But greetings, and thank you all for joining us. I am honored to be here today with student organizers from George Washington University, some of whom were just released from jail mere hours ago after being arrested. After preparing this week, Congresswoman Tlaib and I, for a sham hearing that Republicans had called to pressure the DC government to oppose student organizing under the guise of combating anti-Semitism, which they perpetuate openly and frequently. We woke up this morning to the disturbing news that DC's Metropolitan Police Department had raided the GWU Gaza Solidarity Encampment and assaulted, pepper sprayed, and arrested the nonviolent student protesters in the middle of the night while you were sleeping. This is all happening because those who refuse to stop the ongoing genocide in Gaza think they can arrest and brutalize their way out of this situation. They think they can intimidate and erase the overwhelming voices for peace and justice. They think they can jail dissenters and silence the wide consensus among people in this country that there should be an immediate and permanent ceasefire. These students are here today to demonstrate that they refuse to be silent.
That's right.
From GWU to WashU and everywhere else, students have been violently beaten without provocation. They have been arrested and charged with disproportionate offenses. They have been suspended and barred from campus. They have been denied access to food and medical services, the care on campus. They have been barred from walking across the stage at graduation. They have been wrongfully smeared as anti-Semitic in a shameful attempt to erase the humanity of the many Jewish students that have been instrumental in these protests. I know what these intimidation tactics, what these tactics feel like. I will never forget the brutality that we faced on the streets of Ferguson in response to our calls to end police brutality. Police used tear gas, pepper spray, rubber bullets, noise munitions, batons, shields, fists, and boots against us. The Missouri National Guard called us enemy forces. Our government labeled us as black identity extremists. Politicians condemned us. Those of us on the front lines were traumatized, but we knew that the time would come that would prove that we were on the right side of history, and it did. Time will prove the same for the students currently protesting across the country. Behind every attempt to silence a protester is an idea that those in power don't want people to hear. Students are protesting all across the country because they believe our government has failed to recognize the common humanity of all people. They are protesting because they oppose our government's silence and complicity in the deaths of at least 35,000 Palestinians. They are protesting our government's complicity in a genocide and humanitarian crisis of famine, disease, and other pervasive suffering. And they are protesting their university's complicity in these mass atrocities, including Netanyahu's ongoing invasion in Rafah, where over 1 million people, including 600,000 children, are sheltering with nowhere to go. Look, protest isn't meant to be comfortable. It is meant to be disruptive. And if you don't want folks to protest, then prioritize humanity over profit, humanity over your donors, humanity over your property. This is how justice is won, though. It was true during the women's suffrage movement where young women were arrested, jailed, and force-fed, which led to the ratification of the 19th Amendment. It was true during the civil rights movement when students led freedom rides, lunch counter sit-ins, and boycotts, which culminated in the Civil Rights Act of '64 and the Voting Rights Act of '65. It was true during the student-led movement against the Vietnam War when organizing at universities, the movement to resist the draft, and the youth-led nationwide movement. Those protests led to the end of the war, and campaigns to divest from South Africa by students led to the end of apartheid. Throughout history, people chose not to listen to the students with the vision and the courage. Today, I invite my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to join me and my sister Rashida Tlaib and these brave students on the right side of history. We must hear the demands of these students because we believe strongly that change must happen. Change must happen. And until it does, our days cannot go on as usual. Free Palestine. Yeah. Thank you. And I now turn it over to you wanna go? Yeah. All right, we're going to turn it over to my sister in service, the only Palestinian America in the United States Congress who deserves our respect, our love, our ear, and who deserves all of our love and our honor.
You're gonna make me cry.
I'm going to make myself cry.
Okay, you're gonna make me cry. She does this all the time.
Because you deserve that respect.
I know, but and if I look at her, then we start crying, and it's not gonna stop.
And then after Rashida Tlaib, we will hear from Miriam Siegel, Motaz Salem, and Callie.
Thank you so much. All honor is to these amazing, incredible students. Free
Palestine.
Free
Palestine.
Free
Palestine.
I want all the Democrats and Republicans to know they cannot arrest their way out of this growing dissent. Every corner of our country, people of different faiths, different color, skin, ethnicity, backgrounds of different types are coming together and saying Palestinians deserve to live.
Yes, right.
And that's something that, again, we should honor and respect and love on all of them for saying that over and over again. Last night, under the cover of darkness, when Mayor Browser was set to testify before Congress, before our committee, police pepper sprayed, brutalized, and arrested nonviolent student protesters at George Washington University at 3 a.m. Shame! This is an explicit attempt to repress students exercising their First Amendment rights to protest their university's complicit actions and on behalf of Israel's government's genocide of Palestinians. I want it to be clear, these students' First Amendment right does not end when they enter this campus grounds. It always stays on them as Americans, as people, as human beings here in this country. It is outrageous that police are now entering college campuses across our nation with their guns drawn, targeting students with pepper spray, tear gas, rubber bullets, and tasers. Shame. Shame. It is incredibly disturbing, though, you all, that my colleagues are so quick to denounce the student protesters, but are silent about these young people, about why they are protesting. You know, when Cori and I reached out to them, and I know Cori's been amazing in making sure she's staying in touch with them. I think both of us as a mama bear want to make sure they're okay. You know what they asked? They asked, please, don't be distracted. Please talk about Palestine. So I'm gonna do that. Yeah. There are no universities left in Gaza. Israeli forces have killed over 35,000 Palestinians. They have slaughtered over 14,000 children. The entire population of Gaza is on the brink of starvation. Israeli forces are currently invading Rafah, where 1.5 Palestinians, including over 600 children, are trapped, living in makeshift tents without food, clean water, sanitation, medicine, or any form of shelter. To hear that a mother has to choose which child she's going to feed in Gaza, shameful. Shame. There is nowhere safe in Gaza, as the students have been trying to tell us over and over again. They've been trying to tell us nearly 80% of the civilian infrastructure has been destroyed. They've been telling us stop funding a genocide. All across Gaza, the medical system has been deliberately destroyed, intentionally. That is a war crime. Students are putting their bodies on the line to demand their university divest from the same weapon manufacturers that are sending bombs to murder innocent children in Gaza. We will not stop in defending these students until this end is going to happen in regards to the genocide. It must end. Until there is an immediate permanent ceasefire that includes complete withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza and the release of all hostages and arbitrarily detained Palestinians. Look, these students are saying save lives no matter faith or ethnicity.
That's right.
This is something that I feel like is being completely ignored. Why are they out there? This is why we're proud. We're proud to use our position in office to bring these voices so you all don't forget why there are encampments, why there are movements in dissent around this country. With that, I'm going to have Callie, come on up. Sorry, I made it very Arabic. So.
Hi everybody, we're going to be giving a statement on behalf of the DMV Students for Justice in Palestine, as well as the George Washington Student Coalition for Palestine. I'll open, and then two of my beloved friends and organizers will continue the statement. My name is Callie. As Israel's US-backed genocidal campaign of Gaza wages on for its 8th month, as Israel has slaughtered over 40,000 Palestinians and displaced nearly every single person in Gaza while holding them under siege in an open-air prison, now with no means of escape, we as American college students recognize that it is our moral imperative as human beings to take a firm stance against the complicity of our universities in this genocide and all atrocities that Israel has committed against the indigenous Palestinian people for over 75 years. 2 weeks ago, students across the DC metropolitan area joined a national fight for justice. Our encampment in solidarity with Palestinians and protest against the ongoing genocide in Gaza was quickly met with overwhelming community support, more than we could have ever imagined. We quickly found fellowship in our collective rage against institutions upholding the genocide. Our demands for our universities across the DMV, including George Washington University, Georgetown, American, Gallaudet, George Mason, Howard, the University of Maryland College Park, and the University of Maryland Baltimore County, our disclosure of financial ties to corporations complicit in the slaughter of Palestinians, divestment from all such corporations, an end of all academic ties to Zionist Israeli institutions, which have always been fundamental to upholding the state systems of settler colonialism, apartheid, occupation, and genocide, protection of pro-Palestine speech on campus, and amnesty for all students who have been disciplined for such free speech already. These demands were always meant to be settled over a negotiations table. We repeatedly stressed to our administration and to our university president, Ellen Granberg, that we were willing to negotiate through the kind of dialogue our universities claim to encourage. From day one of our encampment, our GWU student negotiation team has invited President Granberg to the table so that they could dialogue and come to an agreement. Instead of inching towards an agreement on any terms, members of the administration at GW have publicly lied about engaging with us while working to violently clear our encampment with police violence since the first night. Since day one, we have understood the monster before us. It is a collusion of academic institutions, administrations, police, Congress, and the state at large to protect the interests of the Israeli occupation of Palestinian land. They have affirmed a blatant mischaracterization of these encampments, naming them as anti-Semitic and dangerous in order to justify the carceral crackdown on student territory we've seen across the nation.
Our encampment hosted 2 Shabbat services and a bat mitzvah. A local synagogue has even provided a Torah scroll to facilitate these services. We also hosted prayer services throughout Orthodox Christian Holy Week and daily prayers for Muslim community members. Additionally, chaplains and spiritual leaders from a vast array of traditions have regularly come to serve the community at the encampment. The DMV SJP encampment has proved itself to be actively inclusive of all people, of all religious backgrounds and faith traditions, a vision of the world we seek to create together. We have received immense support from professors, alumni, parents, families, blue-collar workers, small business owners, religious leaders, doctors, and even the United Nations Special Rapporteur on the right to education. The encampment started as an effort by students alone, but evolved into a newfound space of collective care, grief, and hope for all people from all walks of life in the DMV. This show of solidarity, community, and devotion to justice is a testament to the collective power we wield and the resilience of the communities that are far too often overlooked and abandoned by the people who are supposed to represent them. President Ellen Granberg slandered and called for police intervention against her students and the DC community from her ivory tower, not visiting our encampment once. If she had come to see us at the encampment, she would have witnessed the value it provided the community, a microcosm of the radically different world we strive for, a world founded on solidarity, love, accountability, and collective care. Our community has demonstrated that this kind of world is possible, and that is terrifying to those who thrive off our isolation, separation, and oppression. By comparison, George Washington University, as DC's greatest gentrifier, has disposed of nearly all the resources in the encampment left behind after the Metropolitan Police Department forcibly removed all demonstrators. George Washington University disposed of dozens of tents that could have housed our neighbors, food that could have fed them, and medical aid that could have protected them. While our encampment built systems to redistribute excess food and supplies to local people in need, George Washington University facilitated the violent destruction of our mutual aid infrastructure, revealing that the protection of the people is not and never has been the university's concern.
Shame.
Shame. The defamation our encampment has received, largely from reactionary politicians, and the Oversight Committee hearing, which intended to validate it, has only served as a distraction from a 76-year-long occupation in Palestine, a 215-day-long genocide in Gaza, and a 36-hour ground invasion in Rafah. While politicians and university administrators debate issues of student affairs under the false pretense that they may cause discomfort, they actively fund and encourage the continued displacement of 2 million Palestinians and the massacre of over 40,000 and counting.
Shame.
Shame.
Shame. The idea that somehow this site of cultural exchange and community education was more deserving of a congressional and state repression than the ruthless and internationally condemned genocidal military campaign in Gaza is reprehensible. While action was immediately deployed against the student movement highlighting the people of Gaza's cries for an immediate permanent ceasefire and the end of the siege and occupation of their land, no material effort has gone towards preventing the universally denounced ground invasion of Rafah that is bringing unprecedented catastrophic grief, death, destruction, and displacement of Palestinians as we speak. But saying this, we've learned, is to put ourselves in the path of violent repression. At 3:15 a.m. on Wednesday, May 8th, Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police officers encircled our renamed Shohada, or Martyrs, Square. In the middle of the night, state violence struck. Officers met protesters with pepper spray for the first time since the 2020 protests affirming that Black Lives Matter. This is a manifestation of a dangerous precedent that the police have full authority to severely brutalize people fighting against America's systemic racism. MPD officers maced students as they attempted to leave the area. MPD stated just this morning that their actions are guided by a commitment to public safety. They demonstrated otherwise by shoving students to the ground, ripping off hijabs, and depriving disabled persons of needed medical support. Last night's police brutality even sent multiple protesters to the emergency room.
Shame.
Shame.
To give one example of the egregious cruelty our community was subject to at the hands of the police, MPD officers handcuffed a protester in their wheelchair. The protester, upon release from jail this morning, shared that the police refused to properly secure their wheelchair in transport to the separate jail they took them to, which is a serious safety hazard. The police repeatedly made ableist threats to knock over the protester's wheelchair or push them out of the van, as well as making ableist jokes about their wheelchair the entire time they held the protester in their jail cell. Shame. By comparison, our community space was available to all, and we were in constant communication with those who would need support. We had ASL translators and also engaged our crowd in this language, allowing for learning and growth. We had medics on site who understood and prioritized needs, despite George Washington University attempting to limit student access to medics for multiple days during the state encampment. We made sure to take care of all community members in a way that the violent state would never understand, through the cultivation of an intentional culture of care. Miriam.
Hello, my name is Matez. I'll be finishing up this statement before we get to sort of our personal stories and experiences with the encampment. Last night's brutal assault of students and DC community members was done at the request of George Washington University. The administration has continuously framed violence as the only option regarding our encampment. This is a bad faith retelling of what the past 2 weeks of our encampment has entailed. Administration time and time again refused to formally meet with a prepared group of student negotiators while touting to the public that the students were the irrational actors, unwilling to come to the table. We wholly reject the notion that a police raid was the only possible outcome to our protest, especially given the violence that was exhibited. Surely it was the most convenient outcome for a university that wishes to silence pro-Palestinian voices, but certainly not by any stretch of the imagination a necessary one. However, with clear support from Congress and a mayor unwilling to stick by her residents, it was emboldened to do so.
Shame!
Yeah.
This, however, is unsurprising, as it reminds us to look at parallels in the destruction and occupation of Gaza. Occupation forces brutalize innocent civilians daily, while the media looks away because Palestinians have been portrayed as violent for decades, and that has led to their dehumanization. Where all of this violence is backed by the very administration, congressmen, and Israeli-trained police that rained violence on our campus against our students and against our community. Yet, the violence we are seeing against our community pales in comparison to that which we are seeing in the U.S. and it pales in comparison to the violence that we're seeing in Gaza. The distrust they are soliciting from our community is minor compared to the loss of faith in the world that Gaza is feeling. Yet commemorable steadfastness that they are displaying as the ruling powers of the world are silent throughout their genocide. But we refuse to be silent, for we understand an attempt to silence us, to suppress us, to abuse us is simply because our bodies are serving as a vehicle for their voice. We speak as a voice in the heart of this empire for Gaza. We are here for Gaza. We will keep screaming for Gaza. We will keep fighting for Gaza. And we demand that all eyes are on Rafah and in Gaza and Palestine. All 32 of our community members who have been arrested have thankfully been released. We reject GW's description of what took place last night as peaceful or orderly. Their assault of protesters within the encampment deconstructs their claim that the police serve to protect us. Rather, it is abundantly clear that the police serve to protect the interests of the elite. The mace on people's backs as they ran away from the police is a testament to their desire to cause harm, regardless of whether or not we obliged by their orders. Their violation of the hijab, the headscarf, is sexual assault. Their mistreatment and negligence of disabled people is shameful. Their careless destruction of the home we built over the past 2 weeks, whether it be the library, the foods, the educational services, and above all, our space of dialogue and care, sincere human care for each other, that thousands of people have engaged with, is abhorrent. But they cannot just as easily erase the lessons that we have learned, the connections we have made, the solidarity that we have strengthened, and the movement that we've built.
That's right.
The university and the police aggression toward our community has only fueled the flames of our righteous anger and radical hope for a future of sincere justice and liberation. And we will not stop fighting until we get it. You best believe that. We will not stop fighting. Every action the police, the university admin, and the government committed against us last night is antithetical to the values of our encampment. We condemn their violence, their community disengagement and endangerment, their unwillingness to communicate, and their commitment to furthering the genocide in Gaza. You may have gotten rid of our encampment. You may have forced us to physically leave with egregious force. But our hearts forever remain in Shuhada Square and with our siblings in Palestine. Let the echoes of our community haunt you forever and fuel our struggle for eternity. Free Palestine. Free Palestine. Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't know they have personal statements. I didn't know that. I'm so sorry. Keep that. Yeah. I'm so sorry.
I think we have. What? How much time do we have?
We spoke on behalf of our student organizations. We want to talk a little bit about our personal experiences as well. All three of us have been in this encampment for 14 days. I'll talk a little bit about my experience here. My name is Callie. I'm a student at the George Washington University and an organizer with the Student Coalition for Palestine. I've been in the encampment for 14 days. I have watched people I love be brutalized by our government and our administration within the last 24 hours, just as I have watched over the last 8 months the people of Gaza be slaughtered with our government's stamp of approval and our university's funding. I have watched our university underneath President Ellen Granberg evict, suspend, and send the police to violently disband students, all to protect their donors and their investments in companies that fund and facilitate genocide and occupation in Palestine. I have watched Ellen Granberg ban our Students for Justice in Palestine chapter, destroy and over-police every space for Muslim, Arab, Palestinian, and anti-Zionist youth, and spread the type of racist propaganda that allows for this violence to be committed against us. My time at GWU, as someone who is part of the anti-Zionist community, has been made miserable by Ellen Granberg, and today it was manifested in the form of physical violence. If she had any shame, she would resign. But alongside Ellen Granberg, I have watched House Republicans like Chairman Comer work alongside Democratic Mayor Muriel Bowser to send MPD into our liberated zone in the middle of the night while we were sleeping when they knew they wouldn't have cameras on us. In the last 24 hours, I've watched my fellow students, my close friends, be maced by police, have their hijabs ripped off, be thrown to the ground, have their hands zip-tied to their wheelchairs, their heads smashed against bike seats so hard that their glasses cracked. And instead of resting and recuperating with them as I'd like, I'm here because Rafah is still being invaded. I'm here because Gaza is still undergoing US-funded genocide, and none of us can rest while the shameful universities and governments continue to support this injustice. Our Congress, our university, our mayor, and our police have all worked together to violently suppress our student movement. And despite this fear of suppression, we remain steadfast in our demands for total divestment, for total financial transparency, for protection of anti-Zionist youth, because no fear is greater than being underneath bombs and airstrikes in Gaza. I stand here today to reiterate the student movement will not rest, no matter what we are faced with, until total divestment from the genocide and until the liberation of the Palestinian people. Shame on Muriel Bowser, shame on Ellen Granberg, shame on our federal government, and shame on this Congress for the fascist crackdowns on free speech of students, as well as the blatant support for genocide in Gaza. We owe it to over 40,000 martyrs in Palestine, including 17,000 children, to keep all eyes on Gaza. As Israel conducts their horrific invasion of Rafah, where over 1.6 million are trapped, we are more obliged than ever to fight for the liberation of Palestine. Because what I experienced 12 hours ago is nothing compared to the experience of living in Gaza, is nothing compared to the fact that I've woken up every morning in the last 8 months, and the first thing I do is ask if my people in Palestine are alive. And the last thing I do before every night is know that when I wake up, 40 more people will have been murdered by Israel with our tax dollars. I send all of my love to the student movement and all of my solidarity to Palestine. Thank you. KALI.
Hi, again, my name is Miriam, Miriam, and I am a Jewish student and protester. I have been a part of the George Washington University encampment since Thursday, April 25th. I was barricaded inside of our Shohada Square for 3 days, in which I was denied access to bathrooms, medics, and legal observers. However, my morale was kept up by the hundreds of students and community members who showed up to show solidarity for Gaza once the community reclaimed the yard. The beauty of the space we created became even more clear. As a Jew, I have been taught about my people's long history of fighting oppression. I have learned that it is my responsibility as a Jew to fight oppression wherever I see it. My parents instilled in me the idea of tikkun olam, which means to heal the world. The space we have created has been incredibly inclusive. We've had a wide range of interfaith prayers. We've had 2 Shabbat services. I even, because I did not have access to anti-Zionist synagogues growing up, I never was able to be bat mitzvahed. And we had a rabbi bring a Torah scroll to the encampment to give me that bat mitzvah ceremony in Shohada Square. Thus, I feel safer as a Jew inside of the encampment than I do anywhere else. And that is because I know that all of my comrades, all of my community, values collective liberation for all people, for Palestinians, for Jews, for everyone. I know that our safety is all intertwined as one people, and that I will never be safe and free until the Palestinian people achieve complete and total liberation. The only time that I have felt unsafe as a Jew has been at the hands of the repressive university administration and the violent police. This morning, I was arrested along with dozens of my comrades and held at a jail site for over 5 hours. Still, I stand here demanding divestment from our universities because I have to. I demand an end to all complicity, all active facilitation of genocide in Gaza, because I have to. The violence students have been subjected to at the hands of the police is directly tied to the brutal tactics of the Israeli occupation forces. We know that our cops are Israeli trained. We know that the tactics they are currently using on us, the brutality that our students are currently facing, those tactics were developed by the Israeli occupation forces and practiced on the Palestinian people. While our universities in DC have been subject to brutality, There is not a single university left standing in Gaza. The IOF, the Israeli occupation forces, have murdered over 40,000, including over 17,000 children. Over 1 million Palestinians are at imminent risk of death in Rafah. There is nowhere safe for them to go. Let us ground ourselves in the urgency of this fight for Palestinian liberation. All eyes on Rafah now.
Hello, my name is Mataz Salim. First name Moataz, last name Salim. I'm a Palestinian American. My family's from Gaza. I've lost countless dozens of family members to the genocide in Gaza. They all were murdered at the hands of the Zionist state of Israel. I start with that to say just how rare it is that we get to hear Palestinian voices. I feel very privileged to be up here, incredibly privileged, because I can actually be a voice for my people. As a Palestinian, especially in the United States, I've lived here almost a decade. It's been very isolating to have to experience what my people, my own family, my own flesh and blood have had to go through, not just in the past 7 months, but in the past 76 years and over 15 years of siege in Gaza on my own. I've had to endure it all essentially on my own because we are erased from the conversation entirely. We have been dehumanized for a very long time. We've been told that our people are less valuable just by virtue of the rhetoric that either the media, the Congress, the general cultural conversation, we're told that we don't really matter. We don't get as much media coverage, regardless of the fact that, for example, for over 7 months now, we have over 40,000 killed, dozens being killed every single day, an invasion in Rafah at the moment, and still we're told that nothing can be done about this. Nothing can be done. So, then came along this powerful, revolutionary student movement. A student movement that reinvigorated all of us, especially the Palestinians who felt isolated, like myself. For the first time in a decade, I felt like I had built a true home here in those 2 weeks. A place where I can fully be myself, unfiltered, true to my core values of community, of collective engagement with each other, with love and purity. Instead, we're called savages. We're demonized. That is not true to who we are. And it is shameful that when we have this powerful student movement that has come together, unwavering in their stance for total and complete Palestinian liberation, that it was seen as a threat by the universities, by the government, which all work together to shut us down with brutal force. Less than 10 hours ago, I was pepper sprayed, vigorously, physically assaulted by police. This is literally still on my hand. I can still feel the burning sensations of the pepper spray in parts of my body. And why? Because we decided to come together, pitch some tents, learn from each other, engage in community activities, and show each other that actually a better world is possible. for our people and for all of those who are in solidarity. And what do we get? Police coming in at 3 a.m., brutalizing us, reminding me of the times I sat watching the TV when I was a kid in one of many operations that have been done against Gaza, killing a couple hundred, a couple thousand, and no one batted an eye. So a little bit of media coverage here and there, and that's it. The world moves on. And for once, our movement, which has become so powerful that we have built over a very, very long time, built something incredible, built something game-changing. And what's the response we get? I get physically assaulted by a police officer multiple times. Doused in pepper spray that hasn't been used in over 3 years in the city. All for what? Because we demanded that we deserve our dignity, our rights, our liberation. Shame on anyone who tries to change the rhetoric and make it mischaracterize our movement or change it into something that it is not. It is about community, about love, and about total and complete liberation for the Palestinians. Too much has been done to us for far too long. I've spent too many nights, eyes glued to the television, watching my people die, feeling hopeless, watching my people get killed, relentlessly murdered, feeling hopeless, feeling like I had nowhere to go. And a decade later, the student encampments come about, and those are shut down with brutal force. You can shut us down, but we will return. This movement is a long-term movement, and we know that. We know that to our core because we know that our ancestors had to experience it. We know that we are experiencing it. We know that we are trying to set up future generations to continue our movement because this struggle is deep in our very blood, to our very core. It's what we're made of. And so let it be known that we will continue on. You shut down our encampment, sure, well done. Now it's a barren yard with nothing on it. Well done, President Granberg. You did it. You destroyed a beautiful community space that was all about love, that was all about not just connecting the students together, but the students with the community around them, something GW has failed to do in any of its projects. We did that. And they tore it down with violent force. But we will come back. I promise you. I promise you we will come back. And we will see the liberation of Palestine. I promise. Free Palestine forever.
Free Palestine.
Thank you.
That's right.
Finish up your question.
Yes.
One more time. Thank you so much, Mohammed, for your words. My questions are, are you working in coordination with Congress goals so that you can build a legislative path to protect your rights, the students' rights to practice their First Amendment? And the second question is more geared towards Congressman Rashida Tlaib. It's about issuing the arrest warrant by the ICC against Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Have you seen any echoing in Congress? Do you think that more folks can join you in this call?
I'll answer the first question, I guess. I think it's also something that's relatively novel and very, it brings me some hope that we have these Congress members who are actually willing to back our movement and also believe in our values and also remind people constantly to keep their eyes on Gaza, to keep their eyes on the genocide that's happening in Gaza, to remind people that Palestine has been occupied for over 75 years. This is something that is new in this government, and we're very glad that they are actually standing up for free speech, as opposed to other members in this Congress who claim to do so until it dissents from what they want to hear. So, very much we're thankful for that, and we're so grateful that we have Congress people that keep on pushing the issue that there is still a genocide in Gaza, that Rafah is being invaded right now, still. that countless dozens dying every day, we're very thankful for that. Yeah. You want to answer the second part?
Yeah. So it's one of the things that to answer the first question, I don't know if you saw my speech on the House floor. One of the most powerful, I think, statements that came out in regards to protecting the rights of the students and under the United States Constitution has been from the American Civil Liberties Union. And I think it's really incredibly important to just quote them because it's very, very powerful. And again, these are American Civil Liberties Union folks. And ACLU says, quote, as you fashion responses to activism of your students and faculty and staff, it is essential that you do not sacrifice the principles of academic freedom and free speech that are at core to the educational mission of your respected institution. Again, this is so core and it's something that we're going to continue to uplift. Just so you're clear, new bills are not needed. Enforcement of current law is what's needed. And so right now, the First Amendment rights of these individuals, no matter, again, dissent is literally an American value. They have a right to dissent, and that's what they're doing. We just got to make sure that they are protected under the United States, continue to be enforceable under the United States Constitution. In regards to the ICCJ, like, just to be clear, I've been waiting for the warrants. I don't know how many more people have to be slaughtered in the hands of genocidal maniac Netanyahu. So he should be already at The Hague. I have no idea what they're waiting for. If it was any other country, I feel like very much, like many of people would be already pushing forward, but all of a sudden, there seems to be constant hesitation. There shouldn't be. Killing of a person, again, in a form of genocide, ethnic cleansing. I mean, he's not pretending. He's telling you all. He has said it over and over again. This is not me and Congresswoman Bush telling you. It is Netanyahu telling you what his intentions are. So that is enough evidence. He's telling you, I want to ethnically cleanse Palestinians from Gaza, literally committing war crime after war crime after war crime. I am tired of opening up and watching videos of mothers putting the names of their children on their bodies because they are worried tomorrow they won't be able to identify their bodies. This is shameful. And again, they need to be able to apply the law equally to every country. And in this case, I hope, again, he's held accountable. He's not hiding. He's telling you what he wants to do, what he's already done, and telling you he's not going to stop.
Madam Congresswoman, I just have a quick question. So earlier you said that these kids make you want to go into military mode. This is a two-part question for you and your fellow Congresswoman. What's your message to the parents of university students who are concerned when their child tells them that they're going to take part in an encampment? And to the students, would you all be willing to share any perspective that your parents have given you on how they feel about your participation in this?
First of all, I've been the child where the parent was like, you're going to go do what? Where? My dad, at first, during the Ferguson protest, was like, please go home. He did not want to see me brutalized. But then later, he realized why I was out there. And so to those parents, you know, your children, let them be who they are. Tell them their rights. Tell them what, you know, how to protect themselves. You know, open up that space for them to feel safe with you and to feel safe with it, whether it's connecting them with ACLU or NLG, connecting them with those that can give them information, and then go with them. Be with them, you know, be with them.
Go to the encampment.
Go to the encampments, be with them. Because the thing is this, the students are leading, which means that there are folks that need to follow. So as parents, we can follow. And let me say this, I took my kids to the protest when they were 13 and 14 and 15. My kids were there with me at the protest. And then my dad came with me. So it was generational because we were standing up for not only ourselves, but we were standing up for the legacy of who we should be, This is a country where we are anti-war, we are pro-peace, we are pro-humanity, and we stand up for each and every person, starting with those who are the most marginalized and the most vulnerable. And so I'll turn it over to you.
I love that you asked the question about parents, because I always wonder about the parents too. I really do, because as protective parents, of course, I have the similar mother. To this day, she's like, where are you? I'm 47 years old and a member of Congress, and she's asking me, why B'nesh Meshek. There's a word in Montaz, you know how it is. Palestinians have always been taught, like, B'nesh Meshek, we don't want trouble, just keep your head down. My mother is that person that always has believed if she doesn't breathe, if she just be's invisible, that she can live. And again, this is a person that grew up in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, and 80s in the West Bank and the illegally occupied territories. But I love what Cori said. If it was my kid, I'd probably be in the tent with them. But again, I'm different. I don't know. But I can tell you, visit. When I went to the University of Michigan Encampment, you guys, it was glorious. It was so incredible. They had these amazing, kind of like rules of engagement. They had all these haters kind of coming in, and they're like, just ignore him. Because I was like, what is he doing? Why is he unzipping the tents? Why is he taking pictures? And they're like, nope, ignore him. And they're just letting these folks that are trying to agitate, just leave them alone. But I was watching, and all of a sudden, one of the students got up to talk about the Armenian genocide. And then another student got up to talk about the Palestinian Nakba. And I thought it was just so incredible to see these different communities, different backgrounds coming together on this sense of like fighting oppression against anyone, no matter who they are. And it was just beautiful. And watching just even, on Friday, doing the call of prayer for Salah, and on Saturday for people to be celebrating Sabbath, it was just incredible to, again, be able to see that on campuses. I think actually parents would get so much out of it. And I think, as parents, the university needs to hear from you too. They're hearing from other parents. They need to hear from you too. Your child is there in the encampment, deserves to be protected. They deserve to have their First Amendment rights protected. And, if I can give my mother President Ono's number, I don't think he'd like it, but she'd call and say, leave them alone. They're students saying people should live. Why should that be punishable? Right. Why should that be something looked down upon?
All right. We are way too far over.
If anyone has any questions, you can reach me or I can get you.